first successful cesarean section was not performed in the West, and I know you will be surprised. Today we are going to the Uganda, but before anything, let me quickly take you on a journey. In 1879, a young British medical student named Robert Falcon arrived in the Great Lakes region of Central Africa on a missionary expedition. He came to Africa not to witness a medical breakthrough. In fact, he was not expecting to witness anything that would change how the world understood African civilization. But what he saw in the kingdom of Bunyoro-Kitara, in what is now western Uganda, stopped him completely. He witnessed a surgeon, an African surgeon, was performing a cesarean section on a live mother, a live baby, a complete surgical protocol involving anesthesia, sterilization, controlled bleeding, wound closure, and post-operative care. Both mother and child survived. Falcon watched for 11 days. That was almost 2 weeks. He took detailed notes. He made sketches. He brought the surgeon's knife back to Europe with him. And in 1884, he published everything he witnessed in the Edinburgh Medical Journal, one of the most respected medical publications in the world. When his colleagues in Britain read it, they did not believe him, because what he described was more advanced than what British surgeons were doing in British hospitals at the exact same time. So, in 1879, the same year Falcon witnessed the Bunyoro surgery, European and American hospitals were still debating whether washing hands before surgery was necessary. The germ theory of disease had only recently been accepted. Joseph Lister had moved to London just 2 years earlier, specifically to convince British surgeons to adopt antiseptic practice. It was largely being ignored. For context, Joseph Lister was the clinical chair for the surgery at King's College Hospital as at this time, so it was ignored. In a European hospital in 1879, a cesarean section performed on a living human almost always ended in death of the mother, not occasionally, almost always. The procedure was considered a last resort, performed only when the mother was already dying and the baby's survival was the only remaining goal. No living European woman voluntarily agreed to a C-section in 1879 because the survival odds were very poor. In the kingdom of Bunyoro-Kitara, C-sections were routine, with a consistently high success rate for both mother and child. Take a look at the image on your screen if you see doubt this. It was published by Cambridge University Press, so African surgeons were not learning from European medicine. The Bunyoro Kingdom was remarkably isolated and preserved from foreign influence until the mid-19th century, with first contacts with European in 1862. So there was no way some foreigner would have brought the knowledge to Africa. Africans developed surgical system entirely on their own. Let us go through exactly what Falcon documented step by step, because every single step of this surgery maps directly onto a modern medical principle that European medicine was still fighting to establish at the exact same moment. Step 1. Anesthesia. The woman was sedated with banana wine before the operation began. Banana wine is a fermented alcohol with documented sedative properties. The Bunyoro surgeon understood that operating on a fully conscious patient in severe pain produced dangerous outcomes. Uncontrolled movement, shock, and psychological stress that complicated the surgery and endangered the patient. Controlled sedation before surgery is the foundational principle of modern anesthesia. Europe was still developing formal anesthesia protocol around this time. The Bunyoro were already applying the principle routinely, using a locally available fermented compound that produced consistent, manageable sedation. Step 2. Antisepsis. Banana wine was used to clean the woman's abdomen and the operator's hand prior to making the incision. This is antiseptic preparation, the deliberate cleaning of both the surgical site and the surgeon's hand before cutting, to reduce the introduction of infectious agents into the wound. In 1879, Joseph Lister was in London trying to convince British surgeons that hand washing before surgery was necessary. He was meeting significant resistance. The majority of European surgeons still operated without cleaning their hands or their instruments, which is why post-operative infections was the leading cause of surgical death across European hospitals. The Bunyoro surgeons were already doing what Lister was begging Europe to adopt as a standard part of their surgical protocol. The incision. A vertical cut was made through the abdomen and uterine walls through which the child and placenta were delivered. A midline vertical incision entering the abdomen and then the uterus in 2 deliberate control cuts. This is precise anatomical knowledge. It requires understanding the layered structure of the abdominal wall and knowing how to navigate each layer without causing unnecessary damage to surrounding tissues or organs. The Bunyoro surgeons knew human anatomy. They knew the structure of the pregnant uterus. They knew how to enter it safely and how to deliver both the child and the placenta without causing further bleeding in the process. Step 4. Controlling blood loss. Bleeding was controlled via the sparing use of a red hot iron to treat the edges of the incision by applying controlled heat to the bleeding tissues to seal blood vessels and stop bleeding. Then step 5. Wound closure. The wound was then closed with 7 iron pins and dressed with a paste made of roots and a clean cloth. 7 iron pins closing an abdominal incision. This is a surgical wound closure, holding the edges of the incisions together while the tissues heals. The root paste applied to the wound dressing in the component has drawn significant attention from modern pharmacologists because many of the plants used in Great Lake region traditional medicine have confirmed antibacterial and wound healing properties. The Bunyoro surgeon were not applying a random plant material, they were applying a specifically formulated compound developed through generations of empirical observation of which plant preparation produced clean wound healing. This is applied pharmacology, empirically derived, clinically effective. Until the pins were placed in position, the patient had uttered no cry. An hour after the operation, she appeared to be quite comfortable. The child was placed to the breast 2 hours after the operation. The wound was entirely healed by the 11th day. 11 days, full recovery. Mother and child both alive in the same year that European hospitals were losing C-section mothers to infection and blood loss at rates that made the procedure a last resort. The African surgeons were achieving full maternal recovery in 11 days. Every single step of this in 1879, Bunyoro surgery maps directly onto a modern surgical principle that European medicine was still fighting to establish at about this period. Here is what happened when Falcon brought this evidence back to Europe. He published his detailed account with notes, sketches and the surgeon's actual knife in the Edinburgh Medical Journal in 1884. He presented it to the Edinburgh Obstetrical Society. He documented everything with the precision of trained medical observer. His account was received with a shock and skepticism. The cesarean section was then regarded in England as an operation of the greatest gravity, only to be performed in the most desperate of circumstances. A British medical student had just returned from Central Africa with documented evidence that African surgeons were performing routine successful C-section with a complete anesthetic and antiseptic protocols at a time when Western surgeons were still struggling with the same procedure. The response was disbelief, because the framework through which European medicine looked at Africa in 1879 had no category for this. African medicine was superstition. African healers were witch doctors. This was the story they painted, and a documented surgical protocol with 11 days full recovery did not fit that story, so it was received with skepticism, filed away, and the world moved on. There is one more detail that deserves to be said out loud. The knife the Bunyoro surgeon used that day is still in existence. Falcon donated it to Sir Henry Wellcome's Historical Medical Museum. It is now held in the Science Museum Group collection in London. A curved steel blade with a wooden handle, made and used by the Bunyoro people of Uganda. The physical evidence of this surgery is sitting in a museum in London right now. The published account is in the Edinburgh Medical Journal. The peer-reviewed analysis is in the Pan-African Medical Journals and the Journal of the Medical History, Ecton International. The knife is there. The notes are there. The sketches are there too. The medical analysis is also there. This series has now shown you a complete surgical protocol developed independently in the Kingdom of Bunyoro-Kitara in Uganda, Africa. The knife is in London. The evidence is in the journal. The mother recovered in 11 days. So this is another day to expose the propaganda that they used in justifying colonization. Africa was not primitive. Africa was performing surgery that that Europe had not yet mastered. This is Planet View. Peace.